everyone, yeah, see my slides? Cool, cool, cool. All right. So today we're going to be talking about SmartSearch. This is essentially, if you go into AudienceLab at the moment and you go into, so let's say, whose one is this? Oh, this is Bill's. Sorry, bro. If I go into here and let's just say I'm going to do a test, it's in this section here, which is business, and it's B2B business keywords. We haven't called it SmartSearch yet because we just didn't know what to call it, but SmartSearch is what we're going with. Now, this is honestly, I think, I don't like saying revolutionary. That's not the word I'm going to say, but I think this is a very, very cool way to be able to start querying businesses. I think that when you go into any kind of B2B builder, I think that, we were stuck with just doing SIC codes or what's included in the job title, whereas this actually allows you to query businesses based on what they do, who they are, and I'm going to explain the model and how it works and go into some more detail so that you guys are able to use this tool effectively. So what we've done essentially is we've harnessed what's called embedding. Now, embedding versus traditional search. So, if you go into a keyword building tool inside any other B2B tool, what they're doing essentially is you're looking at keywords that might contain in the description or keywords that might contain in the title. And the reason why this doesn't really work that well is because one, it's really, really like chunky because you have to try to find certain contains, but also you can get the wrong keywords. And I'll explain why. All right. So this is why we're using embedding instead of traditional search. So embeddings, essentially, it's like an AI system that turns text into numerical vectors. Basically, it turns keywords or just any like a word into numbers. So essentially what we're going to be doing with embedding is we're capturing the semantic meaning and going beyond just keywords and getting context. All right. So the semantic understanding, if you don't know what that means, don't worry, I'll explain it. There's domain versatility. So it's, works across all the industries, contextual awareness, and scalability. So if none of this means anything to you, don't worry, I'll explain. All right. So let's have a look at this. So let's say, for an example, family-owned Italian restaurant serving authentic pasta. Okay, that's the business you're trying to find. Okay, so a lot of people when they do B2B search, they would just be like, oh, I'm looking at, let's say you're trying to find Italian restaurants. You're trying to do a cold email campaign for Italian restaurants. How do you look that up? You would have to find all the restaurants. How do you know they're a restaurant? You'd have to look at their SIC code. You'd have to figure out some kind of classification to be like, okay, this is a restaurant, right? Whereas what vectoring does and embedding is Italian-owned restaurant serving authentic pasta is actually this sequence of numbers. And there's 1,024 dimensions. So that means just of this line here, there's over 1,000 different dimensions, which are, these numbers here. And that allows us to have a really, really accurate score for when we're looking at family Italian-owned restaurants. Okay, so if that's the query and that's the vector, it means that we're getting the core services encoded, so what the business does. We're getting the industry context, the sector, the market, the target audience, who they serve, specializations like unique capabilities, and we're even getting location context as well if we want that too. Okay, so you guys following along? It's a little bit in the weeds. Give me a temp check. Cool. All right. Awesome. All right. So essentially what we're doing is instead of just focusing on keywords, we're focusing on embedding because there's so much that comes in with semantic context. So I'll give you an example. Let's look at Google, right? So when you're typing in something in Google, sometimes even if you don't mention that exact keyword, it gives you results that are hyper relevant. All right. Now, this is because Google isn't, well, it's the largest search engine in the world, but they're not just looking at like, oh, it contains this keyword in this site, because a lot of people just keyword stuff in it. It looks at semantics. So it looks at contextual elements of the site. Like maybe that site doesn't mention the exact keyword that you're looking for, but it's hyper relevant to you. Yeah, I can send these slides to you guys. So understanding semantic search. Okay, so traditional versus semantic search or smart search. So a traditional search is you're looking at Italian restaurants. Okay, so exact match only. So if you were to go into any B2B builder and type in Italian restaurants, you're going to get, I don't know where you're going to go. I mean, it's gonna try to look at descriptions. Maybe it's going to look at their job title. It's going to be a bit of a all over the place type search, right? Whereas semantic search, Italian restaurant, it finds authentic pasta dining, Mediterranean cuisine, Trattoria, and pizzeria. Okay, so you see how this is all in your target market, but if you just focus on keywords, you're completely missing out on it. Rob, your name comes up as Rob, so you're good. Okay, so the biggest thing to understand is the power of context. So understanding the relationship between concepts. So if you understand this, your queries can then start providing rich context, and then you can start writing better descriptions. So let's go for an example, okay? Because a lot of people, when you start using this, you're going to just throw in stuff. And if some of my examples, I was responsible for throwing in stuff. And it's, you'll get an okay result, but it won't be nearly as good as what you want. I will preference by saying it is in the beta stage at the moment. So what that means is there's some stuff in the back end we're working on to see how tight we should make it. Because if you go back to here, this is one very big dimension, right, of that vector. So when you type in family-owned restaurant serving authentic pasta, that's this, it tallies that and creates the score. And then it's going to go across all the different descriptions we have and all the different businesses, and it's going to try to find the right matching score. Now, you can make this extremely tight, which means it's like a, if you do like a 0.3, which is like basically it's a cosine. So it's being like 0.3 means as tight as anything. It's going to be a smaller result. If you make it bigger, it's going to be a bigger result. At the moment, I think it's at about a 0.6. What this means for you is that you get a bigger result at the moment, but we're going to start enabling you guys, I believe next week, to put in your own cosine value. So you might want to be like, all right, so I want to do this and I want it to be as tightly matched as possible. So any one of these, as long as it matches the highest score, you come in. And the difference is you get way more results when you go less, and you get way less results when you go more tight. Okay. All right. So here's an example, and I'll answer those questions as well. There's really good questions. So let's say we're doing dentist. All right. So you put in dentist. That's not enough. What we want to do is we want to focus on how we can expand this further. And I'll show you guys a framework you can use to do that. Again, you want to trial and error it. Right now, it takes about 15 seconds to do a query on the B2B keyword search. We are upgrading it to a bigger server once we pull it out of beta, and that should be down to like sub a few seconds. And what's cool is you can do this and then add intent over it as well. Okay, so instead of saying dentist, we want to say dental practice or general dentistry, cleanings, fillings, oral health. Okay, like that's a bit of word vomit there, but essentially what you're doing is you're looking at like how can you put in more context. I'll give you an example here. So rule number one really is to use descriptive keywords. Rule number two is to include service context. This one's a powerful one, and I think this one makes a huge difference in terms of the type of results that you get. So instead of saying lawyer, right? Because lawyer is very broad. Like you just want lawyers, that's very broad. Like before, if someone wanted an attorney, we would say, I'll go and look up the SIC code for attorney. And that's still good, but you're going to get like people that do attorneys. You're going to get probably some other SIC codes in there, because SIC codes and B2B classifications and any kind of like B2B is very broad in the terms of like it's focusing on very broad terms. So instead, you want to use service context, and you want to do personal injury lawyer, car accident, workplace injury claims. Okay. Now, again, that query is a bit long. You don't have to have it that long, but the idea is that you want to include service context. So this is the best structure. So what you want to do is you want to focus on 6 to 12 words for optimal performance. I think 12 is even a bit high. When I was writing this, I put in 12, but I think even probably 6 is fine. You don't just try word jam everything in. It's only if it's really necessary because it is a language learning model, right? But the idea is to be able to create a score that's going to work really well across the embeddings. So the structure, the best structure I see really is business type plus key services plus target market plus specialization. That's the ideal structure. So tax attorney businesses, law, corporate, tax planning. All right. Everyone with me so far on this? Let me go to some of these questions. All right. Is this just for B2B? Yes, this is just for B2B because there is no, the way we've done this is we've taken all of our business descriptions. We have like in-depth business descriptions of every business. It's like 300, 400 characters or words, not characters, words. So it's very in-depth descriptions. And what we've done essentially is we've run this through fairly advanced embedding models to be able to create semantic relationships. So now when you use this and you're looking at HVAC contract residential cooling installation, it's going to pull and actually look at all the descriptions of all the companies, and then it's going to score it and then bring in those results. Now, it's still not 100% perfect because it is something that we're adjusting on the back end. But once you have control of the dials, so to speak, and you can start messing around with the cosine, you'll be able to really get the exact result that you want. Now, in terms of intent, this is just focused on the B2B structure, but can you map it with intent? Absolutely. Absolutely you can. So you can come in and you can go, residential heating, cooling installation for HVAC, and then you can start adding your intent as well. We were seeing like the system blew up when we first tried it, when we tried to add embeddings and intent, but you should be able to do it now, and it works super, super well. Is this used with intent? So we have started including this inside the keyword builder. So when you guys use keywords in AudienceLab, like if you come into here and you go to the intent section and then you start using keywords, we're starting to build semantic relationships from the keywords as well. Reason why we're doing this is because if you just focus on keywords where it contains or, it could contain, the results are really minimal and they're not actually nearly as good as if you do some kind of semantic embedding. So when you type in, for an example, if you come in here and you just type in something like solar, right? It could be a massive result and people are like, oh, does that mean everybody's looking at solar? It's like, well, yes and no. I mean, you put in solar as a keyword, but what's happening is that it's a pretty easy score. So we're going to find things that are surrounding by solar too. So what you want to do is you want to use probably this same type of framework in the keyword builder for the intent as well. Okay. So let's get into some more advanced stuff. Advanced targeting techniques. Okay. So this is when you can start getting like pretty smart. So layer multiple descriptors. Okay, so industry plus service plus target market plus specialty. Okay, so CPA, accounting firm, tax preparation, bookkeeping, small business. All right, now it's not like when I first started doing this, I thought like it had to like be a sentence that made sense because CPA, accounting firm, tax preparation, bookkeeping, small business like doesn't really make sense as a sentence. But you're getting all the necessary keywords in there, which is essentially going to create a really high score. And then it's going to go after those. Well, it's going to find the closest cosine to all of these embeddings. Use problem solving framing. This one's good too. So manage IT services, network security, data backup, technical support. So this is focused on descriptors of the industry and the service, the target, the specialty. This is focused on what the business actually solves. What's cool about this is it's going to really change the way you guys prospect because a lot of companies are starting to, I mean, we're seeing like Lusher, for an example. If you guys know Lusher, the plugin, they're starting to, try coin the term prompt specting. So essentially, a lot of B2B tools are starting to realize that, the old way is to just focus on these broad indicators. Like, SIC code's still good. You can still use SIC code, but again, it's the power of AI and using these models. You're just missing out if you're not using them. Could you have this element in the business section so that we can find businesses that are showing intent? I'll come back to that because businesses don't show intent, people show intent, and then you group them in businesses. And that's a huge kind of difference about like how to get accurate intent versus, mapping on IPs and things like that. All right, let's go to some industry specific examples. So healthcare services, right? So we've got family medicine, physician care, preventative health screenings, specialized practice, orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine, joint replacement athletes, business consulting, management consultant, manufacturing, operational efficiency process, financial services, fee only, financial advisor, retirement planning, investment. Now, again, you don't have to make them like this complex. I'm just trying to give you guys some good examples. As you can see here, really, the idea is to focus on industry, service, target market, and specialty. Yeah, I'll put this presentation in school. Can you put one of these examples to AL and see what it produces? Yes. Wouldn't that bring in anyone and everyone? Let me see. No. Fee only financial advisor retirement planning investment? No way, that wouldn't bring in everybody. Oh, maybe that's one I'm talking about. All right. I won't go through every single one of these because last example. You mean this one? Residential cleaning service, house cleaning, deep cleaning, families. That one might be for when we're talking about like things of like maintenance, but if we're trying to find like cleaning companies, you still get a good result on that one. You mean the management consultant? Yeah, this one might be a little bit broad. You're right. You have to play with it and see. Because you might find that you have like if you go really really in depth and you just word mash, you might find the result is way smaller than what you want. I find that really without overthinking it, I think the best use case right now, if you are not sure what to focus on, is just including service context. I think as long as you include service context, you're going to get what you want. So if we're looking at something easy like funeral homes, focused on a service context. So like funeral homes, what specifically do they do, right? Like funeral homes, they put together funerals, but like funeral homes for burial services or something like that. That would work well. So really what I do is you take the target of what the business is, and then you just put in what they do. And I find that gets a lot better result. So I would not actually, I mentioned in the slides, because this is based off how a lot of AI companies recommend to do the embeddings, but I don't recommend putting the location in your actual description because you can actually just filter that after the fact. So you're better off getting a bigger result, finding all the businesses, and then doing your location filter. All right. So we'll get into just some mistakes to avoid, and then we can get to some examples and answer questions and things like that. So mistake one is too generic. So construction company, you'd want residential construction, custom homes renovation, something like that. Mistake two is too technical. So for an example, B2B SaaS platform API integration, right? Like you don't want to go too technical with it. So instead, we focus on something like cloud business management, software integration, streamline operations. So I think it's really important to see the difference between this and this. So B2B SaaS platform API integration, like B2B and then SaaS platform and API. If we're talking about a semantic model, we're talking about, an AI model that is basically turning everything into, ones and zeros and twos and other numbers. This is going to confuse it. If we put in B2B, it's like, what's really B2B tied to? And SaaS is more of like a colloquial term. So instead, we want to focus on cloud businesses management software integration streamline operations. So you don't have to add all this in, but instead of saying B2B SaaS, we want to do cloud business management software. This is going to find other businesses that offer this, not showing intent for it. This is, yeah, Rob, this is just for finding businesses. So you add the intent later, and I can go through some like best of the rules on that, but this is specifically just to find businesses that do a certain thing. So, we're doing a POC at the moment for our new deep verified mobile numbers, and we're working with med clinics or whatever. What are they called? Med spas that do GLP-1, I think it is. So med spas offer GLP-1, and that's offer that works best for this client. So that's who we're finding. So we just put in med spas GLP-1, and it had a pretty good result. I'll go through, and I think I have that list here, and I'll pull that through and I'll show you guys. All right. Mistake 3 is conflicting terms. So like, for an example, luxury budget wedding planning affordable high end. All right. Like if I was looking for wedding planning and I'm putting in luxury budget wedding planning affordable high end, this would probably score where I'm focusing just on getting like luxury services, not weddings. Whereas wedding planning and elegant celebration mid-range budget. Okay. Like then it's going to be an improved query. You wouldn't even have to say mid-range budget. I wouldn't even put that in there. I would just say wedding planning or, wedding planning and celebrations. All right. Mistake 4, missing context. Training services. I mean, if you put in training services, just get out of here because that's so broad. So training services, instead, we've got corporate training, leadership development, or communication skills management. Okay. You guys picking up what I'm putting down in terms of these mistakes and how to interact with this further. And again, if you type in and you follow this exact framework and it's not exactly as you want, don't freak out. You might just have to test it a little bit. This is more on best practices for working with these models. But again, if you put in and you click preview and then you scroll for the businesses, like that doesn't cost you anything. You haven't built the audience. So just have a test and say, this is for B2B, Rob. When you enter phrases, do you enter one line or, so for an example, SaaS platform API integration, enter, or no. So I think you're thinking in terms of like booleans and things like that. Really what you want to do is you could put in, well, for one, SaaS platform, I don't think you'd want to put in just SaaS platform because that's very, very broad, right? So what you want to do is you want to focus on something more on the lines of, well, instead of SaaS platform, we think, what does the SaaS do? So, cloud software business handles streamlined integrations is better than API integration. Cloud security software, that's a great one, right? So what you want to do is think more about what the business does instead of just who the business is. Because you got to remember the way these are trained are from keywords from the actual business. And what I'll do is let me pull up an example of this med spa one so I can show you guys as well. All right, any other questions? Think of what API solves instead of just API. Yeah, that's a very good point. All right. So again, you can test this, and I don't recommend you just punch these in one query. So don't do version A, then version B, then version C. Like you do version A, test it, then do version B, test it, then do version C. And we're going to be putting in more ways for you to see that this is like in target market as we get into the interfaces and fun stuff like that, particularly now because we've got like the white label suite. But Version A, service focused. Service focus is personally my favorite. I think by service focus, you get a way better result. Problem focus and outcome focus is good, but service focus, you can't really miss the mark there. So if you're watching this and you're very confused and you're like, oh, what do I do? Just think like, what does the business do? That's it. Really, what does the business do? You type that in and you're going to get a way better result instead of just typing in the business. Think about Italian restaurants. Like you don't just type in Italian restaurants, you think in restaurants that serve Italian cuisine. Okay, this is a bit of a refinement process. First of all, how do I add this here? B2B keywords better. How do you add the keywords? All right, let me grab a keyword and put in. Let's do this one. Physical therapy. Sports. Let's do. So you go here, you go to business. I'll put it in here, I'll go back to here and I'll come back to it. So B2B business keywords. So you go up here, you go to build a list. You've got your business section and you've got your keyword builder here. It's no, it's not in the intent tab, Rob. So you got the intent, which are these keywords, but then that's focused on the intent side of things. But whereas this is focused just on finding those businesses. This is recording, so don't worry. All right, let me I'll chuck in some terms here and we can start playing around with it. But I want to make sure I get through here. So yeah, it filters by business intent focused on people's intent. That's exactly it. So like, let's say for an example, let's just come in here and I'll just bang in HVAC and I'll show you a different result compared to HVAC and something else. So I'll come back here and I'll look at that. It takes about 15 seconds, which is a bit slow, but once we push it to its main server, it should be like sub 3 seconds. And it should just be like any other filter. Okay. All right. So let's just chat about the refinement process. So in this part here, really begin with general but descriptive queries. So when I say begin with general, I don't mean just type in HVAC. You'd want to type in HVAC services, right? Analyze results. Look for patterns in results versus expectations. Add specificity. So include more targeted descriptors. Test variations and iterate. Okay. Really, you can rate your queries on specificity, context, differentiation, and completeness. Really, I think completeness is probably the last thing to focus on, because really what you want to focus on most is context. Specificity, this could throw you off a little bit because you could be like, oh, I just need to make it like very, very, concise and things like that. And don't get focused on just making this sound good. Don't just be like, oh, that sounds like a really good description, so that's going to work. Just focus on what does the business do. As long as you focus on the service of what the business do, you won't go wrong. Okay. So some more query techniques here is compound multiple related concepts. So veterinarian clinic, pet, healthcare, checkup, vaccinations, dental, emergency, dogs, cats. Now, this is when you get like a bit more advanced. I wouldn't recommend just like pumping that in there because you do mention healthcare. You've got exclusion through specificity. So you can do stuff to, avoid other results. So independently owned farm to table restaurant, locally sourced seasonal menu. So like we don't just want restaurants, we want specific restaurants. Capability stacking. So list multiple related capabilities. Full service digital agency, website design, SEO, social media advertising. Outcome-based queries, business consultant, manufacturing, waste, improve efficiency, increase profitability. You've got industry power phrases. So healthcare, comprehensive care, specialized treatment, evidence-based approach, personalized treatment plans, professional services. I don't want to, I'll give you guys these slides. You can go through them. I'm not going to go through every single one of them. But the point is, there's a lot of stuff you can do to be able to add to what you have. Like this one here, let's do medical spa, GPL1. Let's look at HVAC one for an example. So HVAC, you see here, I just put in HVAC and it's getting a little bit of everything, right? So it's got like Samsung HVAC, it's got this, it's got, anything that has mentioned HVAC, it's pulling in. So we want to get a little bit more granular in terms of what we're doing. Now, one thing I want to point out as well is that you guys will notice if I just put in, HVAC here, again, that's a pretty broad term, but even then you see I've got 474,000 results. You're like, that's crazy. There's no way that many people do HVAC. All right. That many people don't do HVAC. Remember, we're getting people, not specific businesses. So what that means is we're getting all the people from the businesses. So from the receptionist to the friggin' janitor to whoever. Okay, so when you put in business searches and you come in and you see like there's all these people and you're like, there's no way there's that many businesses. There's not. You're getting every single person that's at that business. Okay, so just keep that in mind because we're tracking people on a personal level and then making it a business search. So when someone's like, oh, well, how do I find businesses looking at such and such? You find the people looking at that work in those businesses, and that's a business search. That's the best way to do it. Otherwise, you are looking at the IPs of the computers at that business. So it's just, ridiculous. All right. Let's type in this one so I can say I can't copy and paste this. I'm going to have to medical spa GLP-1. Let's do that. So medical spa GLP-1. Oh, I won't put that whole one in. It could be a lot better. I think that's correct. GLP-1. I'll run that in. Okay. We'll go through one more strategy. I'll go through that. I'll answer some questions. So multi-query strategy. So comprehensive results. You've got your primary. You've got brand focused. So you can do brand focused ones. So, if you want to focus on WeGovy weight management, you can do that one as well. You can do clinical. So like medical weight loss, clinical GLP-1 treatment. Aesthetic. You can do aesthetic clinical weight loss treatments, injections, GLP-1. Someone said women-owned photographers. Yes. Let's start thinking about more of what they do, though. If they're a woman-owned photographer, maybe they are woman-owned photographer for newborn babies. Something like that might be actually better. All right, why use multiple queries? Different businesses use different terminology. You want to focus on different position strategies. You want to show comprehensive coverage, and you want to account for, language variations. All right, final best practices, and let's come in here and have a look here. All right, so we've got, what do we type in? Medical spa GLP-1. It's not the best query, but it's not the worst. So we'll come in here and you can see, now you might come in here and you're like, whoa, hang on, I've got all these different companies. That's crazy, blah, blah. What's the bloody University of Michigan doing in here? Okay. Don't freak out. Remember, you're getting the people that, could be working at one company and another company. Okay. And if you download this result, you actually see an array of companies that they work at, and you'll be able to see the first company, second company, third company. Okay. So that's why a lot of people get tripped up in here. We may start rearranging some of these fields as well. Now I've got more data coming in, but you can see here. So we've got medical, Dr. Van, blah, blah, blah. We've got Life Hope Healing Med Spa, credit. Like this one here, we're getting that because we'd probably want to go a little bit broader, so a bit more specific in terms of the GLP-1. But overall, I think 70% of this is going to be super, super good. I mean, if I go into a med spa one that I did recently, let me pull this over. When we were looking at med spas, and I'll show you guys how the descriptions and how it pulls through. James med spa test. Okay, so if I come in here, so we were doing med spas that were doing GLP-1, and this was an actual pretty subpar query, if I'm honest. I just did med spa GLP-1. You could go a lot more next level on this. But the point is, if you go across here, you can see, I think James already edited it. Oh, he did. Okay. Anyways, if you go in here, if you go in and download data, you can actually see the descriptions of the businesses. And that's what we're using to train models for the embeddings. So it's great because the descriptions are so in-depth and so robust. Some descriptions are better than others, but most of the descriptions are really, really good. And we're adding more and more each day too. But you can see here, so this is the med spa test. So we've got really, really good companies that we're pulling in here. Companies that I don't think you'd be able to find doing just a stick code search, right? So this is a list of like 3,600 people, okay? And this is just for, I think we did just for like owners or something. So someone said, could you take to the next level and add intent keywords as an example? And this would be effective for? So yeah, you can absolutely do that. So what you could do is, let's say for an example, so if I'm doing, what's this one that I did? This one was GLP spa, medical spa GLP-1. If I was happy with this, what I could do is I could be like, well, who of these people are looking for lead generation? It's no, you spell lead generation. Lead generation services. And you can run that on here as well. I'm pretty sure you can. Hope this doesn't explode. Well, since yesterday, it's always want to do demos. It always explodes. Okay, go through one more slide, and then we'll come back to this. We'll kind of bounce in between technical considerations, similarity matching. So what we're doing at the moment is cosine similarity. So we do a score range. So 0.1 unrelated to 1 is identical. We do, effective threshold. You don't really need to know this stuff, but we are going to enable you guys to be able to decide on the cosine that you want to go with. Okay. So, it's not going to be complex. All it really is going to be is, do you want it to be very, very broad, or do you want it to be very, very specific? Or do you want it to be the middle? That's really what you need to focus on. All right, cool. So you see here, so we went through, we did medical spa GLP-1, and then we were like, I want to see the people that are actually looking for lead generation services. And you can see you've got 20 people. So we might have to expand that a little bit, but you see here, all of these match ICP, and this is a really good list to go after. And it gets even cooler. We'll go over here. If you go to contact, if you do valid business emails, you'll only get valid business emails. So you don't have to do like the sifting like you're doing before. And if you valid phones, you only get valid phones, which are phones that we've already verified. So some pretty cool stuff there. Oh, yeah, that's why. Okay, because I did medical spa. Yeah, that's deep verified emails and that's deep verified phones. Because people do white label, we just called it business emails and valid phones, but that's what we're using for the back end. Okay, cool. So, main takeaways, we're about understanding search, not just keywords. Context and specificity drives better results. 6 to 12 word queries optimize performance. So, I mean, 6 to 12 queries, word queries is a lot. Don't just try word dump. Like, don't feel like you have to make, oh, I've got to make the 12 word quota. Just focus on what the business actually does, like the service of the business. I think a great example is if I want to find woman-owned photographers, I would focus on what do woman-owned photographers do? They photo shoot newborns or something like that, right? So you want to focus a bit more on that. Build feedback loops for continuous optimization. Currently, this is in beta, so we're running about 15 to 20 seconds search time, moving to 3 to 5 seconds on the next week. And it'll be like any other search tool, really. But yeah, I mean, it's really, really cool. So what we'll do now is I'll answer some questions and then I can start. Yeah, I want to keep it more on this, but I'll answer some questions related to everything as well. How we do it for time. We're good. We're good on time. All right. Let's see the questions people have on this. How often do you update your data? So we actually do, in terms of the data itself, like the consumer, the B2B, we do a new build every week. Every week, every month. So there's been so much testing that's gone into how we're prepping the data. So like basically we have 4 full-time data scientists, and all we do is we're basically our own data provider. So we have our own quote unquote data company called Elixir. And what we do is we put out new builds every month based on models to beat the previous build. So for an example, last month, we started messing around with like, all right, let's do deep verified mobiles. This month we did our 4.1 and we put through deep verified mobiles. Next month we're focusing more on crosswalks between we just got every accurate address in the United States, and now we're using that as a reference file. There's about 41 data sets we have so far. And what we're doing is we're constantly building models to see which data sets prioritize over others. Because people might be like, oh, experience correct. And someone might be like, TransUnion's better. And someone might be like, no, equity data is better. And every data set thinks they're the best. So what we do is we run actual models and we test it, and then we outsource it to call centers and things like that to see if the person's actually real. But yeah, so yeah, every month we put out a new build in terms of like the whole data set, and then our data is refreshed every 24 hours. So SmartSearch is available now. If you go into your AudienceLab account, you just go to business, it's available to everybody. We haven't like limited the feature. You've got B2B keywords and you got it just in here. So you can do SmartSearch, add your job titles. You can still do sick codes. Sick codes still exists. But I find SmartSearch to really get what the business does. And then if you align that with how you're doing your email marketing and your outbound, it's just night and day. It's so much better. Like if I was to look at, let's say I wanted to target similar companies like Hyros, I could just type in, something like marketing attribution software company, and I would get better results than I would trying to just do a sick search. Do you have fill rates for records of email, phone? What percentage of emails have been field personal email fill rate? I'm not going to riff fill rates off the cuff. I'll have to actually check. I can tell you now, in terms of deep verified mobiles, we have just over, I think 90 million so far. In terms of deep verified, I can tell you the deep verified ones because we're running those each day. Deep verified, I think like 40% of the data set is verified already on B2B. And now we are moving to B2C as well, now that we've got the protocols built on those ones. All right, cool. I'm going to wrap up this section and I'll take recording off on this so people can watch this, and then I'll come in and bust through some questions.